Yes, The Force Unleashed, a game which has been the subject of a lot of contention in the Star Wars gaming community for many good reasons and also many bad reasons. But today I don't want to discuss those negative connotations. I want to discuss what The Force Unleashed meant to the Star Wars gaming series in general, and just how The Force Unleashed was a truly revolutionary game for its time. And the sequel, The Force Unleashed 2, was also revolutionary, and to its misfortune was also at the beginning of a new era of Star Wars games. But first, let's talk about the good things about The Force Unleashed. The Force Unleashed brought in a whole new physics and interaction system inside the Star Wars game, and as well as very much improved visuals for the time. I mean, yes, this was circa 2008, so obviously doesn't really stand up to compare to what we have available to us now, but for 7 years ago, it was quite impressive. And on top of that, the gameplay of The Force Unleashed was really its hallmark and really the thing that made it what it was. Because the gameplay of The Force Unleashed, basically, by playing a Star Killer, you were able to just do anything that you wanted to do. You could rip TIE fighters out of the sky, you could like force infuse your lightsaber with force lightning and just go on a massive swiping spree and electrify everything, and you could punt Jawas. I mean, that was fun, right? Which of us didn't have fun punting Jawas? So I mean, yes, that was something that the game did bring to the realm of Star Wars. Even in the previous era, like the Star Wars Battlefront and Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, you could not punt Jawas. However, there were some bad things about The Force Unleashed. A lot of people felt that the storyline was a bit too misleading, it wasn't really coherent, there were just some problems with it. And my personal opinion is that I think the story was quite intriguing and very, very well thought out. The Force Unleashed 2, at its difficulty being that the story was just way too short. I beat the game in I think 4 or 5 hours when I first got it 5 years ago. So that kind of gives examples to a limitation that was presented with it. However, The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2 are interesting because they both detail and describe two different eras of Star Wars games. The Force Unleashed 1, released in 2008, came towards the end of one era of Star Wars games, where you just had like this kind of fun, frivolous thing, where it's like, just do whatever you want, have fun with it. And by that, I am referring, of course, to the games like Star Wars Battlefront, the original Battlefront, not the Battlefront that is up and coming in a few days. Battlefront 2, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which is kind of like a precursor to the Force Unleashed mechanics. Yeah, essentially those kinds of games that were released, Star Wars related games during this time period, were these like happy-go-lucky sandbox-ish kind of games where you just had fun with them. The Force Unleashed 2 was released at the beginning of the current era of Star Wars games that we're in, and while it still embodied that frivolous kind of fun, like, here's what you can do and just run with it kind of mentality of Star Wars, it didn't really fit all that well at the time, like for the aforementioned reasons, the story being limited, and I don't think people really felt that it tied off the Force Unleashed franchise very nicely. However, that is not what I want to discuss in this particular instance. Moving forward from that, after The Force Unleashed came out, you had Star Wars The Old Republic, and then a hiatus of Star Wars games. I mean, you had like a couple spin-off games that were released for Kinect and stuff, and like Disney Infinity, but there were no real mainline Star Wars games over that period of time, from 4 years ago till now. And I think that kind of left like a sour taste in people's mouth. Like, the start of this current era of Star Wars games did not have the best footing and did not get off to the solidest ground that it could stand on with the release of The Force Unleashed 2, which just from a gameplay perspective, while it was a very solid game, it did have its problems, and it did leave things that were lacking, severely lacking in people's enjoyment. So on top of that, and just to kind of wrap it up, as the final hallmark of what The Force Unleashed meant for the Star Wars franchise, they both contributed different things. The Force Unleashed showed us that we could have really good visuals and physics and effects and stuff in a Star Wars game, and it could be a very modern looking game. The Force Unleashed 2 showed us and taught us that waiting around for Star Wars games, especially competent Star Wars games, is not an easy task. It's not an easy process to do. And yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say in regards to these two. And hopefully Star Wars Battlefront will be a fantastic game that we can all enjoy. I will be discussing that in a little bit more in depth in the Star Wars Special Edition of FPS Weekly, which will be out this Saturday, so if you want to, you can check that out. This is Logical of Digital Dynasty, and I'm signing off.